So this is what you do the first time we're back together as a family, Vampire Book Club.
Warning, this podcast, Vampire Book Club, will contain spoilers from the Vampire Diaries, the originals, and legacies. Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Vampire Book Club. My name is Michaela. Don't forget to check out my links in the description below. I do have a Patreon. I have a link if you want to start your own podcast, and much more, including but not limited to my YouTube and other social media channels. So I just wanted to say one more thing. I appreciate anybody who's here listening to this podcast. Anybody appreciate any reactions or reviews that I do get. Well, I had gotten some reviews and most of them are good, and I appreciate them whether they're good or not. I appreciate any criticism that you're going to give me. However, I'm a little upset because I got a 1-star review by one person who continues to come back and give me 1-star reviews due to not having the same opinion as somebody else. I put a lot of time and energy into these episodes, and this person basically said that I got a 1-star because Damon is the better brother. And to be honest, I did not say Damon or Stefan was the better brother, but I had 2 guests on that episode, and they both said that Damon was the better brother. My daughter also had an anaphylactic reaction during this episode, so I had to go leave my house and pick her up at her father's because I was concerned. And I still don't know who's the better brother, and I don't know how you all pick because they both have really good and bad moments. But with that being said, everybody on Reddit supposedly says that Damon is the better brother, and that's why I got a 1-star review. I was able to take that down because it was opinion-based, and Apple agreed with me. And literally 3 days later, the exact same person came back to give me another 1-star review saying, did she really just say that Stefan killed Bonnie's grandmother? And I partly did say that, yes. I don't think he actually killed her. Obviously, it was from an overexertion of magic, but Stefan played a huge role in that. And that's also what Bonnie says to Elena when she stops talking to her in that moment. It's said on the show. If this person doesn't agree with my content or they have a way to help me improve my content, go ahead, leave a review, let me know. But if you're going to keep just sitting here hating me, why are you watching stuff? I'm literally trying to monetize this content, and I put a lot of time and effort into it. And it's just, I would never leave anybody at their business a 1-star review because they had a different opinion than me, especially when that opinion is not affecting you in any way, shape, or form. And Stefan, the only thing I said, again, was Stefan does play a role in Bonnie's grandmother's death. And he does, as well as Bonnie and Elena and herself, Sheila, and Damon. Maybe this person knows me in real life. Maybe they just like giving 1-star reviews. I have no idea. All I'm asking is that if you are going to take the time to listen and then give me a review, please be mindful and please make sure that it is something about my podcast and not something that happens on the show that you disagree with that the writers did. If you want to talk to me about something, feel free to message me on Instagram or YouTube or wherever. Well, comment on YouTube so I can respond. If you don't like the content that I'm putting out, if you think that the things I'm saying are not true, or the structure is hard to follow, or it's not researched or organized well enough, like if it actually has something to do with the content I'm putting out and not what's actually written in the show, I would appreciate it. I would just appreciate it. I guess I can't stop you, but I would appreciate it if you could just be more mindful in the future. To me and other content creators, we put a lot of time into this. But with that being said, I appreciate all of you who are listening and for all of you being here. I'm going to get started now on this episode. But in today's episode, we're going to be discussing Clefin and what they really are. Is Clefin just a friendship? Are they friends? Are they more than friends? What really happened between them in the 20s? Let's dive deep into the Clefin relationship here. There will be spoilers. Yet again, I just like to remind that at least once, if not more than once. Obviously, the show is over, and anything I talk about in the show is, if you haven't finished watching or haven't seen it, is going to be a spoiler. And that also includes legacies, the originals, and the books. So we see Klaus and Stefan meet in the 1920s through Klaus's sister and Stefan's love interest, which is the same person, Rebecca Mikaelson. So we think that they meet before this. We don't know about this meeting up until the 3rd season. In the 2nd season, we think that they meet but it's weird because Klaus is talking to Stefan like he knows him or about him several different times, or that he's heard stories of him, which wouldn't really make sense because he's just a vampire. I mean, I could understand Stefan hearing stories about an original vampire, but not usually the other way around. And to quote Marcel, Klaus doesn't really care about much, so when he does, it's hard not to notice. So we see Stefan ask Klaus to be a part of the ritual, and he's just like, goes to Elena, brings him over there, and he's like, who is it? What's your choice, Elena? Aunt Jenna or Stefan? And he goes, nope, just kidding. I have plans for your boyfriend. And I was thinking, like, that's weird. Why would you have plans for her boyfriend? Do you think he's sexy? I mean, Paul Wesley could get it all day, but like, why? Or is it that you're just that evil that you constantly want to remind Stefan that you killed Elena during this ritual just so you could become the full hybrid? But that's what I thought at that point, because obviously I didn't know anything else. And then he starts telling stories when Damon gets bit by the werewolf. He starts saying stories about this one vampire who was on the wagon and off the wagon type of stuff. And you're like, how the fuck does he know that? He's got some type of personal interest invested here. There is something else going on, and you're not sure yet what it is. But then we see episode 3 of season 3, I believe, and that is the episode where Rebecca Mikaelson is introduced, and we see the real backstory that Klaus and Stefan have, and why Stefan doesn't remember it. However, I always wonder about the backstory with Damon, because it doesn't make sense why he doesn't, but especially because, like, we don't see him being compelled. Also, I really love that they have a backstory, Klaus and Stefan, because the actors, Paul Wesley and Joseph Morgan, had a backstory. Paul Wesley was actually responsible for setting this interview up so Joseph Morgan could get this job. So that really makes me happy to see that they got a backstory similar to their real life story. In a way, obviously it wasn't for a job or anything, but they just have history just like the actors do. And I really love that. And it makes all the Clefin moments that much better for me. And both of the actors make jokes or comments about Clefin being a romantic ship. So I like that as well. I personally would have liked to see a romantic relationship between them. They had chemistry coming. Chemistry was like great. It was amazing. I would have liked to see more. Personally, even more than that, I would have liked to see them in a throuple with Caroline. Just saying, you don't have to agree with my opinion, but either way, they had a great friendship, whether you ship them or not. And their friendship goes back to the 1920s. Rebecca and Stefan meet first, and they're making out and basically, or something, whatever they're doing, feeding on some chick. Stefan has his humanity turned off. And Klaus walks up to Rebecca and says, come on, we have to go now. And she's like, I don't want to go with you. And he's just like, who is this guy? And she's like, no, Stefan, he'll kill you. Poor girl's traumatized. He's killed most of her boyfriends other than Marcel and Stefan. And for some reason, Matt. But I don't think he really viewed Matt as a threat. Where he did view Marcel and even maybe Stefan a little bit as a threat. But Stefan and Marcel had a personal relationship with Klaus as well, which is why he does not kill them, and that's my personal opinion. So Stefan is with Klaus on a mission to make hybrids for Klaus, because Klaus, made him do that in order to save his brother's life, which Klaus is the only person at this point capable of saving his brother's life from a werewolf bite. And he turns Stefan into his Ripper self, and he is fascinated with Stefan's dark side. He knows Stefan has a dark side. And while they're together, the hybrids start failing. And then we see Klaus go to Chicago. And he's like, Stefan, this is a magical place or something. And while he's talking to a witch to get help about Chicago, Stefan is behind the bar making a drink because he's Klaus's little henchman and he does whatever he wants him to do. And Stefan's like, what the fuck is this? why is there a picture of me and you in the 20s? He's like, well, you said yourself that time was a little spotty for you. We start to see flashbacks of Rebecca and Stefan meeting each other and dating each other. And then Klaus trying to be controlling, and Rebecca, again, like being afraid of Stefan being murdered by her brother. At first, he's like very controlling and possessive of her. He's like this with anybody that he cares about, including Elijah, honestly. He doesn't want them to love anybody else because he's afraid to lose them. He's like, you're going home with me right now, sister. And then he's like, oh, this is the famous Stefan Salvatore, the one you've talked so much about. You're right. He does have funny hair. And he hated him at first until Stefan started doing like dark, crazy vampire shit, which wasn't even that crazy. But it was kind of weird. This was one of Klaus's favorite tricks. And he says, I learned some of my favorite tricks from you. And we see Stefan making this guy who's about to call the cops on him because he can't find his wife. He's like, oh no, the PD. And they're laughing at this guy, and he makes him sit down, and he cuts his wife's arm open and pours blood into a cup, and he makes this man drink it. And then he asks this man, and Klaus thinks this is hilarious. And they're like, their eye sex with each other in this scene is great. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. But I can't not see it. So Klaus was impressed with Stefan's evil, dark ripper side. He even whispers it all like very sexually to him, or whenever he says the word, and I love it. And one night, Klaus is really beating himself up, and they're getting drunk in the 20s, and he's warning him about Rebecca, and he misses his family, I think, as well. And Stefan's just basically like, your family doesn't know you for who you are, and he's like, what, an abomination? He's like, no, a king. And that boosts Klaus's little ego right back up again. And then Michael comes for Rebecca and Klaus. And Klaus knows that Stefan is wild and will leave a trail of bodies and get them caught. So he compels them, instead of killing him like he could have, compels him to forget about Rebecca and Klaus until they meet again. Klaus had plans to meet again, or until he says otherwise, whatever it was. But Klaus was like, maybe I'll see you again, baby. You know? Maybe platonically, maybe not. I think not. I think that this whole time during the 20s, they were hooking up behind Rebecca's back, taking a little too few many shots, but whatever. Klaus even says strange bedfellows, and I get that can mean anything, like friends too, but, you know, I think it was a little more. Now, you think Stefan and Klaus are very different beings, and however, they are not. They have a lot of similarities with each other. They both memorialize their victims because in the end, they are utterly and infinitely alone. That's what Klaus says to him when he's explaining why he keeps his victims' letters and why Stefan writes the names of his victims on a wall so he can remember it, so they remember the damage that they caused to other people. Even though you think Klaus is like this horrible person, he does feel guilt on some level. He just buries it down and keeps fucking going. Stefan, it eats the shit out of him. That's the only difference. But they both remember, and they both just care more than they want to let on, or even if they do let on, they have that in common. They also are not able to let go of a vengeance that they are carrying. They want revenge. They don't know how to let it go. We see that with Stefan against Klaus, and we see that with Klaus against, well, everybody. Except for the people that Klaus ends up caring about. But yeah, that's definitely another thing that they really have in common. I also think that they are both obsessive, especially with females. Stefan is obsessed with Elena, and I think that is due to the fact that he was obsessed with Catherine. And I also think that he never got over Elena in the same way that Klaus was obsessed with Caroline. And we don't really even know why either one of these people were men were obsessed with these women, but they continue to stay obsessed and care about this woman more than any other woman for no reason, except for, Klaus's child. But he still tells Caroline that he is going to wait for her, Klaus. He still tells Stefan to make sure he does right by her. He knows her better than anybody without seeing her in years. Literally risks his life and the prophecy to kill to save Stefan after he tells Stefan to die. But I don't think he would have let him die anyways because they're also in love. And another similarity between both of them is that they both deeply care about their family and would do anything for their family. They both show that time and time again. They have just like very deep relationships with their brothers and sisters, if they have sisters. And I think that they were able to connect so deeply because they were both missing their brothers. And I think that's why they developed such a close relationship in the 20s. And Klaus even says that when he is compelling Stefan to forget them. He says, hey, like, I forgot what it was like to have a brother, and appreciates that. And he references it in the future as well. So in season 3, when Klaus and Stefan return back to Mystic Falls because Stefan has lied to him, he makes him turn off his humanity. Klaus wants Stefan's allegiance. Stefan loses so much because of Klaus isolating him and forcing him to turn off his emotions. This is why Stefan ends up hating him eventually. And Klaus is just like, all I wanted was a friend. And even after Stefan helps Klaus kill Michael, inevitably saving Damon again, Stefan can't let go and is actively still trying to kill Klaus. And Klaus is just letting him. He let him kill a hybrid and didn't kill him. And yes, he did have leverage on him, but I don't think Klaus would have killed him anyways, despite the fact that he is also a main character in the Vampire Diaries and they're not going to kill him. But I just think that he cared about him too much because it was somebody who saw the good in Klaus and thought highly of Klaus. And Klaus doesn't have, there's not a lot of people that think that about Klaus. And Klaus doesn't want to like kill the very few people who do see the good in him. Even when he bites Caroline, we see that. And we see it when, you know, he had no problem about to kill Damon. And that's because Damon doesn't see the good in him. Although he was stopped by the witch Gloria from doing so. It's not like Klaus couldn't have killed Stefan and found a witch to get a locator spell to figure out where they were, or to kill the witch who did the locator spell, or whatever. He would have found the bodies eventually, with or without Stefan. But he is like, I'm just waiting for my friend to come back. He says that. He's like, I wanted a friend. He says it several times to Stefan. He just wants Stefan to be his friend. And he's super, like, jealous of anybody else's attention that Stefan gets. I mean, that Stefan gives to others. Like, for instance, when Klaus says, you can remember us now, and he looks at Rebecca and all the memories come flowing in, he remembers Rebecca, and Klaus is jealous that he's not like, oh my God, I remember you too, baby. He's like, Stefan. And he's like, we were friends. Oh my God, we were friends. And he's like, we are friends, Klaus says. And they tease each other like brothers. They talk about having like a moment of brotherhood because when Stefan does compel him the first time to forget about Rebecca and Klaus, he tells Stefan, like, thank you. I forgot what it was like to have a brother. Which he really couldn't have been away from Elijah for that long, but we know Klaus is obsessed with Elijah and can't live without him, so I guess it makes sense. Only was probably a couple of years, but yeah. As this is the 1920s and they parted in 1919, Klaus has an affection towards him that he doesn't have towards other people, and yes, it's because they had that friendship in the 20s, if that's what we're calling it, friendship, air quotes. Klaus genuinely seems hurt when anytime that Stefan doesn't want to be his friend or doesn't trust him for some reason, you see like a genuine look of disappointment on his face. He seems to really care about Stefan for some reason. I don't know, man. The way they look at each other is really all I got, but I just love it. In the 1920s dance, Klaus is very nostalgic and is speaking very beautifully about the way they were strange bedfellows in the 20s. And Stefan's just like I'm supposed to have happy memories about that. And just the fact that Klaus wanted him so badly to be with him just really indicates for me that there was something more than just friendship or brotherhood here. Because like right in this moment, he kind of has his family back at this point. So it's like he doesn't really need like his brothers, not just Rebecca. And I'm not saying that Klaus doesn't care about Rebecca or have a close relationship with Rebecca, because clearly he does. I think just having your brother is different than having your sister, especially as a male. But he is the one who chooses to continually dagger them. So that's on him. But yeah, for some reason, no matter how many times Stefan lies to Klaus, Klaus still believes him, and for some reason, Stefan is never lied to by Klaus, and Stefan never believes Klaus. I mean, that hurts Klaus, and he's just like, what do you want, a secret brotherhood handshake? And I think Klaus secretly wants that, yes. I think that's why he says it. He's like, but really, baby, do you want it? He's like, I showed you I had the sword. I showed you all of these other things. He's like, but at the same time, I do get where Stefan's coming from. He literally shows him that he literally daggers his own sister after he gets what he wants out of her. So I do get it where he's coming from. But at the same time, Klaus is like, baby, I'm not going to hurt you. Even when you stole all my shit, I still didn't hurt you. You stole my whole family and I didn't kill you. And like I said, he could have gotten a locator spell. Regardless, you can see how much Klaus respects and appreciates Stefan. At some point, Stefan pushes too far and Klaus decides that he's going to retaliate. But however, that really doesn't make sense to me, just because like the way he chooses to retaliate is to have Tyler bite his girlfriend. Like at this point, I think Damon or, oh, I see, it's only Damon or Caroline that are options. Okay, so now this makes sense. But maybe it was also because of something else. Like maybe he knows that Stefan cares about his friends and would do anything to save them. Or to put on his hero hair. Either way, it only hurt Caroline and Tyler. Not really Stefan. He didn't really even know about it. I didn't really understand. Then he shows up at the sheriff's house, literally defeating the purpose of whatever he was doing while retaliating against Stefan, because he offers to heal Caroline unless he was just trying to get the sheriff's allegiance like he says, or support is the word he used. But I don't know, man. It felt like it just didn't make sense. Maybe he was just trying to show his reach and where it could go, and that next time it will be final. Or that he found out it was her birthday, and he loves birthdays, as we know. He tells Caroline that, and we also see that with Aurora. I can never say her name right. Aurora. That in the past, we see that, and I like that they did that as well. Or maybe he just told Tyler to bite Caroline because he is obsessive and manipulative, and he saw Caroline that first time, and for whatever reason, he was obsessed right then and there, which is very similar to the way that Stefan was obsessed with Elena for the similarities that she had to Catherine. And even he was obsessed with Catherine right off the grip. And I know they try to explain that with the doppelganger curse, but I think it's more like they're just predators or just men with obsessive tendencies. And they're very similar. They are. They have a lot of flirting chemistry. There is just a lot about them that I just truly enjoy. I love their chemistry on set, and I think that they definitely would have been one of the best ships if they had gone down that road. First of all, Klaus sees the same strength in Stefan that most people don't see, and he cares about Stefan like most people don't see, in the same way that he does with Caroline. And I think that Stefan plays the same role where he pretends not to like Klaus as much as he does, and Klaus just knows like they both do truly enjoy Klaus on some level. And despite all their negativity about and towards him, he still just keeps going on with the friendship and letting it happen. They flirt quite a lot in the show, and I truly enjoy it. He lets Stefan in on the cure. I know Stefan kind of forces his way into that, but he believes his story, and then he tells everybody about it. And Klaus is always looking for a reason to put his hands on Stefan and to like choke him up a little bit, you know? I think he personally is always looking to have fun with Stefan because he enjoys him. And we actually see Klaus get vulnerable with Stefan on more than one occasion. And on several occasions, we see Stefan also show his vulnerabilities with Klaus and put his life in Klaus's hands. For instance, we see him open up about Elena a little bit, and even with Caroline and the pregnancy, as well as how he just kind of lets Klaus help him, even though he never has trusted Klaus, and he helps him with the sire line thing. Obviously, that affects him directly as well, but still. And he kind of makes a mention about Haley caring about him too, and not to like, you know, just like make sure you appreciate her. And in that moment, I know that Paul Wesley is actually dating Phoebe Tonkin, but it was still cute. And then Klaus is still like, yo, like, love Caroline the way she deserves to be loved because I'm obsessed with her too, and I'll get you both eventually. And to be honest, I feel like Klaus really spoke to him in that moment, and that's why when he shows up in Texas and he sees how happy Caroline is with the babies and Rick, that he does leave and doesn't want to put her through the stuff that he's going through. I think Klaus really spoke to him and he really listened that time. I also think he doesn't actually care about Caroline like she deserves to be, but that's a whole nother topic. And Stefan says something about like saving you saved me. And I think that was metaphorically and actually in a lot of ways. I think they have saved each other multiple times, like just based on their friendship, not even with the actual deeds of saving each other. And again, Klaus brings up, Caroline. And another instance after Elena becomes a vampire and Stefan is still dating her, Klaus comes running in when he's in the middle of trying to hunt the hunter of the five. And just the way he comes in, like one voicemail is just efficient. Like that Stefan is even comfortable enough to blow up this man's phone, not caring about the consequences, knowing his reputation, knowing they all just tried to drown this crazy ass man and leave him in the ocean forever. And he still comes like, hey, baby, I'm here. And I know that it's like the vampirism cure for Elena to keep her alive as a human, to use her blood to make more hybrids. But I don't think it is. I don't believe that. He loves Stefan, and he maybe not on the same level that he loves Elijah, but he loves Stefan. And just the fact that they were both in love or with Caroline, I really enjoy that. It shows that they can care about the same person because they value the same types of things, even though I'm not really sure. I think that Stefan's is a little bit different than Klaus's, obviously. Stefan and Caroline had a friendship first, but again, Klaus really does seem to have pretty good instincts about most people. When he sees Caroline, he instantly is like, oh yeah, she is strong as fuck. Nobody else believed that about Caroline. Nobody else could see Caroline for who she was. And a lot of people don't see Stefan for who he is either. And I think that applies to both Stefan and Caroline, that they don't really see themselves as strong individuals or morally correct, but they just try to be the best they can and they struggle with who they are inside. But he sees them for the strengths that they have. And I think that's something that Klaus does for both of them, like I said. And he instantly knows what they value and who they are as people. And I think that's why the three of them could have been a really great throuple, because while Klaus doesn't necessarily portray those characteristics, he does value those characteristics. And there are a lot of moments where Stefan is submissive to Klaus and Klaus knows he's the alpha male. But I think that he truly admires that both Stefan and Caroline are not afraid of him, but also respect him and give him these alpha male moments because he really needs his ego fed because he's just broken. In the end, Klaus just keeps saying that he wants his friend back. So, I mean, I don't know what that's about. And even when he isn't going to help him, he does. And he brings Stefan to Freya and says, hey, like, this is Stefan Salvatore, an old friend. And they're all just like, why would you bring a friend here? Because the three originals, Rebecca, Elijah, and Klaus, this is season 3 of the originals. And the three of them there's a prophecy going around saying that by the end of the year, the three of them will fall, one by friend, one by foe, and one by family. So, I mean, everybody's on edge and he still helps him. And I feel like they both were actually more driven by their need for power or control in a situation more than they were by love, even though love deeply did impact Stefan. And it did also deeply impact Klaus as well. However, I just feel like their vengeance and their control and things that are taken from them, they don't know how to let go. And that's what really kind of drives their impulses. And I think that that's why they click so well as well. And while they're both kind of struggle with vulnerabilities in some ways, I think that Klaus struggles with this a little bit more, especially emotionally. But there were a lot of moments where he was just able to be vulnerable with, Stefan. And like in the 20s, we see him be vulnerable in the sense where he's like, I'm an abomination, and he's feeling down on himself. And Stefan is like, yo, you're a king. baby, you're a king. And they're laughing and they enjoy each other. He shares the loneliness that he feels with Stefan as well when he brings up the letters and the wall reference. And there is more, but I can't think of them at the moment. So I think that he felt comfortable with Stefan, and that's why he also wanted him around. And I think those are good things for a relationship. But I also think that, like, I don't know. I just feel like they had sex in the 20s, and I really wish that that was true. To me, it will be true forever. But back to similarities that they had respectively with Elena and Caroline. I think that, like, they were both the one that got away, and they just could not let go of that. And I think that, that really shapes who they are as people as well, in a lot of situations. And I think that's another reason why they just click. And they also had the same agenda in a lot of situations as well. So a mutual interest or a mutual goal is definitely something that will help you click. It's interesting that they met and they had the same bloodline, not even knowing, and that they were able to click. I know that bloodline doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be friends, but I think that's pretty cool. And regardless of whatever they are doing or talking to, they're both very passionate men deep down. And I think that's just another thing that really connects them. Another really big thing that is both very prevalent for them is that there is a big role of redemption. I think that Klaus is infatuated with people who believe he can do good because he does not believe in himself, where I think Stefan has these moments where he fucks up and he feels so guilty and he wants his own redemption too. They both feel pain, even though, like, they both want to be redeemed in somebody's eyes. And I think that's just one more connection. They both have a lot of animosity towards each other at some point in different situations, but they both have, like, a mutual understanding of each other's pain and struggles. And there's definitely just sexual tension and chemistry in all of their scenes. If you guys can't see it, I'm very confused on how you cannot, because that's all I see and that's all I want. Klaus is extremely protective and obsessive and jealous of him, where he doesn't really show that in a lot of ways. And I would say that Stefan treats Klaus in a very similar way that he treats Catherine. Especially even like Catherine and him hook up again, even though he tries to hate her over and over, and he actually is the one that kills her, but he cares about her too because of the time that they shared, or because he's simply obsessed. I don't know. I think that he does care about Klaus like he does Catherine, and I don't even think he cares about Caroline as much as he cares about anybody else in the show, and that bothered me. But I would have liked to see the three of them together, like I said many times, because at least, like, he'd be there for Klaus, and Klaus would love Caroline the way she deserves. But yeah, and it would be the same thing with Caroline loving, Stefan, and Klaus would get what he deserved, because I think both Stefan and Caroline care about Klaus, and Klaus cares about Stefan and Caroline. And I think Klaus cares about Caroline enough for, the both of them. And I'm really not saying that Stefan doesn't care or love Caroline. Just not in the same way that he does Elena. And definitely not in the way that Caroline deserves. I think that Stefan also, like, Klaus also ships Stefan with Elena. And I really like that as well. Over Damon with Elena, he says, "You're the better man." And he tells him he's a better man all the time. So obviously, I think that they should have been in a relationship, but regardless, they actually weren't, as far as we know. But I do think they had an amazing friendship or bromance, or even kind of brotherhood. I think that there was a reason they were brought together in the crossover with season 3 and 7 of the originals and the Vampire Diaries, because those two characters really connect, and people wanted to see them. Because they do have a true bond, whether that be romanticized, platonically, or just brotherly. Tell me what you guys think below in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. Bye.